Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Hoshedar Deboo, a third-generation entrepreneur currently working as a director at Albaj Engineering Corporation Private Limited, a manufacturing company specializing in the fabrication of process equipment. A mechanical engineer by education, Hoshedar chose to return to his roots and help continue the legacy of the family business after completing his master's degree from University of Pennsylvania in the US. Hoshedar has had an eclectic combination of a Parsi upbringing, tight-knit family values, his unabashed love for food, and a huge passion for tennis. His mantra for life is live, love, laugh. What he craves most from his life is simplicity, happiness, and wanting to make a small impact in this world. Welcome, Hoshi, to this episode of Wings Podcast.
Hi, Mr. Milind. Thank you so much for having me here.
Hoshi, in many ways, you are a unique combination of an entrepreneur involved in a family business in engineering and comes from very strong Parsi roots. So I don't know where to start this conversation. There is so many places where we can kind of begin, but maybe we could start with your Parsi roots, because that seems to have had a huge impact on the person that you are and what you do. So why don't we begin there?
Sure. So Parsis as such are known to be eccentric, big-hearted, fun-loving, peaceful, passionate community, but with a huge love for food and drinks and just being merry and having a good time. And I feel that I absolutely embody that Parsi spirit of just being happy, having a good time. And growing up in a Parsi household has been a very unique experience, I can say. And I feel the values that have been imparted to me by my family, through the Parsi community has been a very important role in shaping me into who I am today. So Parsis have we have three main pillars in our community, which we refer to in our ancient Parsi scriptures as Humata Hukta Hurvashta, which basically means good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. And I feel that they have been a very big impact on me. And it's something that I feel I've resonated with throughout my life. From a very young age, these have been inculcated in me by my parents and my family. And I try to ensure that in every walk of life or everything that I do, I try to uphold these values. And I don't think it's just the Parsi values as such, but I think it's a lot to do with the family and the way they have imparted them to me in their own way. It's not just what they've taught me, but the way I think my parents have exemplified with their actions as well. And I feel that's a very good learning point for me, something that I've always looked up to and taken a lot from them.
Hoshi, I have had the opportunity to interact, know, and even work with quite a few people from the Parsi community. I mean, of course, everything that you have said just now are very much a part of the Parsi ethos. But there are two things which I have felt distinctly about the community and the way they engage, especially in the field of work. I mean, the work could be in any kind of work. It could be a corporate life, it could be business, it could be, in the field of art or music or whatever. What I have experienced, Hoshi, are two specific behaviors which I cherish them, both myself and the way I have enjoyed interacting with Parsis, is they are brutally honest, forthright in their communication, and extremely hardworking. So I wonder if this is what you have experienced growing up too, and how some of these qualities are probably showing up in the work that you do or who you are.
So you mentioned honesty, right? So honesty and integrity, I feel, have been two virtues which have been drilled into me since I was a kid. Uh, Completely ingrained into me since a very young age. So much so that they've now become a building block, or we can say a philosophy for us here at Albaj as well. It's something that we are constantly trying to impart and expect from our employees, but also from our customers and suppliers. We're always very transparent and forthright, as you said, with our customers. We'll straight off the bat, we'll let them know that, okay, we can do this or we can't do this. We won't try to experiment. We won't try to hide something or hide our inefficiencies. We'll just be very forthright and very transparent with them that this is something we can do, this is something we can't do. And it's something I think they've learned to respect a lot because they know that we are true to our word. So I feel honesty and integrity have been a very big part. And more than that, along with that, I can say it's also what I've been taught. Two very important values I can say are being a good human being, just always trying to help people without expecting anything in return. I mean, my dad always told me that if you can make one person smile every day, you will, I mean, that's the best thing that you can do. It can even be something as small as just helping them on the road with directions. It doesn't cost you anything, but for them, it's everything. So I think being a good human being, and for me personally, what I feel I've resonated with most, or which has stuck with me the most, has been family values, as to how family is very, very important in one's life, and I think the role that they play. And I think that has basically charted the course of my life, because family values and family is very, very close, something very close to my heart.
So, Hoshi, as a part of your growing up experience, maybe your school days or college days, is there any experience that kind of is very much rich in your mind even now, a personal experience where you have seen some of the stuff that you just spoke of as principles of life, if I can say that, being embodied by somebody, and which you have experienced firsthand as a part of your growing up? Any specific experience? Love to hear that.
So there won't be a specific experience per se, but as I said, all these three values, honesty, integrity, and family, I feel when I talk about family, I think that I'm very, very lucky to be surrounded by a very, very close and very, very helpful family, I can say. Some who I know I can always count upon and fall back on, and who I consider pillars of strength. I mean, I've seen how family has come to, a lot of our support in times of need, whenever, for anything that we need, the support, the love. I think when you talk about experiences, I think I've just grown up watching what family means and what it is like to be part of a Parsi family. How everyone's always out there to look out for each other, always there to just help you, stay with you, to comfort you. And I feel this huge family, or this tight family value which I talk about, is I think one of the main other reasons, or one of the primary reasons that drew me into the family business as well. Because I know that whatever I am today, I owe all of it to them. And I feel this is something that really drew me in to joining the family business. Apart from my love for engineering and passion for entrepreneurship, it was something that gave me a chance to give something back to family, because I know that today, whatever I am, everything that I have, I owe it all to them. So this is just a way of me trying to help, trying to contribute to continue the legacy, and more than that, try to give something back to them in return. What I truly would want is to genuinely make them feel happy, see a smile on their face, and give them something to genuinely feel proud about. And for everything that they've done for me, it's just a way of giving things back. And along with just family, with the Parsi religion, so I can say that I'm a very, very proud Parsi, not just as a Parsi, but also proud of our rich, vibrant culture and heritage that we have. And more than that, the legacy of greatness that Parsis before me have they've laid the path down for greatness. And that sort of inspires me as well to, hopefully just sort of make a small impression someday as well. So that's what I'm hoping with the whole family business, with making the legacy for ourselves and giving something back to them in return.
Hoshi, I think for many Indians, and for that matter, many people around the world, the house of Tatas or the house of Godrej's, for example, are so well known, and for whatever they have done for business and for the country as a whole. But in the shadows of these large, big names, there are these many small businesses that the community has started, and of course, your company is one such business, Albaj Engineering. So why don't we kind of walk back a little bit, and if you can briefly tell us, what is Albaj Engineering? What is the history? How has it evolved over the many years since it has been around?
Albaj Engineering is a family business which was started by my grandfather in 1976. So it's now over 45 years that we've been in existence. And we initially started off just as a small factory shed in Pune, where my grandfather would support his clients with small piping spools. And so we're basically into process manufacturing and fabrication of process equipment, boilers, heat exchangers, pressure vessels, piping, skids. So and we cater to pretty much all walks of life: food and beverage, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, uh, food processing, cogeneration plants. So where we cater to every industry that can be. So it was initially just started by him as a very small shed, and now we've actually blossomed into 3 big manufacturing plants in Pune, and we've picked up a lot of certifications along the way as well. And uh, it's now just about continuing that legacy and trying to just maintain the reputation that we have, and at the same time slowly but surely grow and try to evolve as and when we go. And uh, I think I grew up watching my dad join my grandfather in the family business, and somewhere deep down I knew that that was the legacy that I myself wanted to uphold once I felt that I was qualified enough to do so. And with that in mind, it was always that, okay, I definitely am going to join this business. It was never forced upon me. I was never pushed to do this. It was always, okay, you are free to explore, you are free to do whatever you feel like doing. But I guess, as I mentioned earlier, that family values, that sort of drew me into this as well. A chance to contribute to the legacy, a chance to help them, a chance to grow and evolve into the business. And now dad and we're taking it one step at a time.
So you of course have grown up looking at how Albaj Engineering has grown over the years. Thanks to your work that your father and the father before him has done. But then, as you were pursuing your education, I think you went to the US. You did your master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Pennsylvania. So why don't you walk us through, that phase of your life where, as a 20-something, you were exploring what do you want to do in life? Of course, there was a family business, but there was no pressure, as you said, or no compulsion for you to join them. So you had an option to explore life, as your father said to you. So what was the going on in the minds of the 21-year-old Hoshedar just before he was on the verge of looking for a further education in the US, and maybe you could walk us through what happened in the few years that you were in the US.
Sure. So I've grown up in a family where education has always been emphasized upon. A very high importance has always been placed on having a very good education. But at the same time, there was never, like I said, there's never been any pressure on me that, okay, this is, you have to do this, you have to do that. I was always free to pursue any field that I wanted or what I found interesting. But I guess being from a family of mechanical engineers, businessmen, entrepreneurs, mechanical engineering and entrepreneurship was somewhere sort of always in my bones. And so it was a no-brainer for me to pursue a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Pune. But at the same time, there was always that yearning for or higher education, for having some sort of independence, and at the same time, gaining a very different life experience. So that yearning and that craving was always there. And so with that in mind, I started applying to universities in the US. And when I got an acceptance from UPenn, it was an absolute dream come true for me, because uh, University of Pennsylvania is not a university that you can say no to. You just cannot say no to that. So
Absolutely.
in that moment, it felt like an absolute dream for me. And those 3 years living over there in a foreign country, away from the comfort of home and family, I think they've also played a very, very big role in molding me into who I am today. The entire experience that I had there, the education, the on-campus jobs, making friends, all of it, I think the independence, I feel all of it was extremely enriching, and it taught me so much about myself. Uh, honestly, I remember when I just got there the first few days, once I got off that aircraft, uh, I was quite homesick for a couple of days initially, because it was a huge change from what I had been used to all my life. Suddenly, from having, family all around me, having my meals cooked for me, asking their help for whatever I needed. Now, suddenly, here I am completely alone, cooking my own food, managing my finances, doing my laundry, looking for an on-campus job, making new friends, because I knew no one in this country, no one in this city. So it was all completely new for me in that moment. And yet, I feel that those 3 years taught me so much about myself and so much of what I'm capable of. Uh, I feel that a lot of us, including myself, always underestimate ourselves until you're actually put in that particular situation. We're always like, okay, I don't think I can do this. I don't have the confidence to do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. But when you're actually put into that situation, when you have no choice, that's when you realize what you're made of, what you're actually capable of. And I feel that independence that I got there, the whole uh, aspect of being self-reliant, having that ownership and responsibility in my life, which I needed at that point of time, I think that really, really helped me, the whole experience. And honestly, it's something that I would recommend a lot of people to do, a lot of young people maybe. Doesn't have to be going to a foreign country or going out of home. Just, I would say, have some sort of experience, discover yourself, find out who you are, what you're capable of. And I think that played a huge role in who I am today, that entire experience in the US.
Mythology, in many ways, I feel, has those many stories, and we've all grown up reading Amar Chitra Katha and those kind of stories where where the prince, as he comes of age, is asked by the king to leave the kingdom, and he's given a particular task and say, okay, complete the task, and if you complete it well, you can come back and you could be my successor. That was a kind of a grooming experience that stories in mythology essentially tell us. And of course, the prince, when he is ready at a young age of about 18, 20, whatever, has to leave the kingdom, and all he has is a horse, probably to carry him, maybe a sword to protect him. And in some of the stories I've also read that the father or the king also gives him a book of knowledge, saying that if you are stuck and if you have any questions in mind, all you do is open the book of knowledge and you will find the answer. So with these little resources, the horse on which he would travel, the sword that he would protect himself with, and the book of knowledge, which will probably answer his set of questions, the prince embarks on a journey. And after a few years, learns a lot, discovers a lot about himself, about the world, and kind of comes back as a hero, is how the hero stories, we've grown up with. And many movies have been made around it, and so on and so forth. So in some ways, what I find is there is this invitation to go on an adventure. But whilst you're on an adventure, there are a lot of difficulties that the prince faces. Maybe at times the sword is of no use. the book of knowledge is also of no use. And the prince has to figure out some way to navigate or motivate further. So what I'm trying to get at is, in many ways, your story of going to your master's in the US in some ways is also similar. So have there been any instances where you felt in a difficult situation and where a lot of self-doubts happened in your mind and you were struggling as to what to do? I'm sure it would happen to many. It has happened to me during my college days.
Absolutely. I mean, out there in that country, when you're alone, literally you're all on your own. You've got to do everything from scratch, right from making friends to finding an on-campus job, managing your finances. So all of it was extremely challenging, I would say, for the first 2-3 months. You're just getting into the groove of things, finding yourself a routine, finding out, okay, this is my place, this is now what I'm supposed to do here. This, okay, because it's a huge cultural shift when you go there as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're used to a certain sort of system here, a certain education pattern, a certain sort of I would say a life that we have here. And now suddenly there you are, you're stumbling your way through school, because it's a very, very different experience there. What a lot of emphasis more is focused on all-round development, on finding out what you are, how strong your basics are. So a lot of it is self-work over there compared to a lot that's given to us here, to us straight away. So finding all of that out, how are you going to manage your finances? Because honestly, nobody's ever taught us that.
Correct.
We've not been taught that in school. It's just something to discover as you go through life.
Correct.
So all of that is a total cultural change and a cultural shock that people say.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very, very difficult to manage, but it was something that I needed at that point of time. Straight out of college, you think that you know the world, you think that nothing can deter you. And once you go, you're like, okay, I literally know nothing. I have to discover everything for myself. I have to go through life finding out or learning things on my own. And I think that was a very, very important lesson and experience for me.
So what are those one or two things about Hoshi that Hoshi learned in those few years at UPenn?
One, he learned that he is capable of being independent. I think that was the biggest eye-opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a long part of life, I've just been at home, having everything given to me, having people around me. So there was never that sense that, okay, how independent am I truly am? So this really helped me discover that independence is something that I've learned, and now something that I feel is very, very important. Independence and that sense of responsibility and ownership in actions. Because when you're out there, you have to take ownership of who you are. You have to take ownership for your actions. You can't blame anyone else because there is nobody. So that sense of responsibility and ownership has also translated into the professional life. Wanting to be independent, trying to take charge of things, trying to just do things on my own without being told. So I think that has really helped me in a professional life as well. The independence, the part about being responsible and taking ownership for your actions. And the second thing was, I would say it wasn't something I learned, but something I discovered, is that there are so many different people from so many different walks of life and so many different cultures. And when you meet people from different cultures, when you interact with them, when you learn their life experiences, you realize that there's so much more to life than what you actually know. What we live here is very, very sheltered. It's a very sheltered life. It's a very easy life, I would say, compared to what a lot of other people from a lot of different other countries and different backgrounds and different circumstances have had to go through. So when you interact with them, when you talk to them, you learn so much more about different cultures, so much more about different people. And I think how to talk to people, how to talk to different people differently, how to converse, how to improve your presentation skills, how to basically be a better communicator. I think that was very, very important to me. That's what I learned both within school and outside, just by having that experience there, about how to communicate with people, how to be a good orator, be a good presenter. And I think when you are having your own business, I think that is something very, very important and a skill that you absolutely have to have.
Yeah, universities, overseas, especially in the US, which many Indians go to, especially the ones like you have been to, which is an Ivy League school, the University of Pennsylvania. It's a place which attracts people from all over the world. So I'm sure in your class too, you would have a set of friends who would come from different parts of world. Maybe why don't we just quickly hear from you about the set of friends you had in your class, and what sort of background or roots did they come from, which essentially helped the young prince learn a lot of the world other than where he came from.
So there was obviously a huge group of Indians because you tend to attract each other somewhere or the other. But even they, one of them was from Dubai, so he had a totally different life experience about growing up there, about what life is in Dubai like.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of my very, very close friends were in fact local Americans. So when you actually, they used to take us for baseball games, for football games, they helped you ease into learning the culture, how it is that you're supposed to, because there are some things which Americans could find offensive, which is something absolutely normal for you. So how to go about the day-to-day life, learning more about the culture, learning more about the sports, introducing us to the local cuisine. And one of my flatmates, in fact, was a Ukrainian,
Mm-hmm.
who, in fact, even today, is still not able to leave the country because of what's happening there.
Correct.
And so his experience, he was actually in the army for a couple of years before he came for his postdoctoral studies. So, when you talk to these people, when you learn what they've been through, you actually realize that I have a lot to be thankful and grateful for in life.
Mm.
Because I've led a very simple life, a very sheltered life. And it's very, very easy compared to what a lot of these people have had to go through.
Correct.
So that really puts things in perspective, helps put things in perspective. And I think that was very important. I got a very different perspective of life in those 3 years that I was in the US.
So Hoshi, just as the prince in the story, after his 2-3 years of adventure, after he has left the kingdom, he comes back and returns back with a lot of hopes, dreams, and expectations for himself back in his home kingdom. When you finished your education in the US and you chose to come back to your roots and join family business, what were the thoughts in your mind? What was the vision, ideas, dreams you had for yourself? And how has that journey progressed for you up until now?
As I mentioned earlier, that looking at my dad join the business and taking things over slowly, somewhere deep down, I always knew that it was a legacy that I wanted to contribute to as well. And so with that in mind, it was always in my mind that I was always going to return back home. It was never about settling down there. It was never about staying there. It was always about working there, getting some experience, education, and then coming back here to contribute towards the growth of the business. It was, I guess, in certain ways, it was a sense of belongingness that got me back, because I always knew that this is where I belong and this is something I always wanted to do. And being honest here, when I joined the family business, it was initially extremely overwhelming for me. There was always this fear within me that I was scared of doing something that would negatively impact the business, or I was always afraid that, oh my God, what if I do something that ruins the legacy and reputation that we've built over these years?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in a very cruel twist of fate, I ended up joining the business exactly a week after my grandfather, who actually founded the business, he passed away.
Oh.
So it felt like a passing of the torch moment, and something that my dad refers to as the circle of life. One generation leaving and the next one taking its place.
Correct.
So in that situation, I found myself having huge boots to fill. But I guess in some ways, I've always been lucky to have two great role models to learn from and look up to.
Mm-hmm.
Both my granddad and my dad are two very different people, and they've contributed different things towards the business. So all I've tried is all I'm trying right now is to see that observing them, what can I take from the best of both of them to contribute the most. So we at Albaj are more of a manufacturing firm, which involves a lot of technical knowledge, business know-how, and also getting your hands dirty. And my grandfather, until his last day, he would spend a lot of time on the shop floor, walking around, supervising, talking to the workers, and he would in fact remember all their names, not just the employees, but the actual shop floor workers as well. And I remember he had told me that this is something very important and something that they admire and cherish a lot, because it shows to the workers that, okay, it conveys to them how important they are to you, that you respect them, they are part of your family, and that their contribution matters. He never shied away from getting his hands dirty. And I guess in some ways it is something which I feel like I have contributed and taken over after him, because the first thing I come every morning is I'll get onto the shop floor, I'll monitor the work, I'll talk to the workers, try and understand what their issues are, how from my position, if there's anything I can do to help them or improve their efficiency, improve their productivity, and see how I can make an impact. So in a lot of ways, I think that I've taken over after him in those aspects, because a desk job, just sitting at a desk, doesn't really appeal to me. I like to be there. I like to see how a piece of metal is actually converted from scratch and it comes together to form a complete product. I think that's what really excites me. So in a lot of ways, I've tried to combine a lot of what I've learned and seen and grown up watching him do. And at the same time, my dad is a lot more analytical, a lot more of a strategist, a lot of financial foresight. He's, a very good communicator, and he's a great negotiator, talking to suppliers, talking to customers. And he absolutely commands the respect of everyone within the organization and a lot of the customers and suppliers as well. And I feel that is something that I hope to attain one day, because ultimately we are the face of the company, and what we are is projected as the company. So I hope to be able to attain that respect that he has done over all these years, but I know it's through a lot of years of hard work and progress. And so in that way, I'm constantly trying. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, please complete. Sorry to interrupt.
So in a lot of ways, I'm trying to, combine what I'm seeing from the two of them. So the whole part of it being overwhelming slowly starts getting better. And in a lot of ways, I owe a lot of this to my dad as well, because he's always been there as a source of support, as a source of encouragement, to guide, to advise me. Yet at the same time gives me the freedom to try out new ideas, to explore new avenues that we can do. So every day on work is a new challenge, it's a new experience. And I get to learn so much. I'm literally every day I'm taking in so much of new information, learning from the best that there absolutely is. So it, in a way, it's the best of both worlds for me. I'm getting to learn and getting to experience so much. And at the same time, I'm doing my bit to help make an impact and grow the family business. So for me, I'm in a very unique position. And that is something absolutely wonderful for me from where I am. And that's all that I hope I can really do, basically.
No, you've articulated this so beautifully that at one side you are respecting, cherishing, and continuing some of the great things that have kind of happened at Albaj over the last few decades, thanks to your grandfather and your father. But what happens is, time is one such variable which is, in my view, so very overarching that you have to contextualize everything with respect to time. So, your business, family business, which is, almost, 4.5 decades old, close to 5 decades now, finds itself, I would like to believe, in a 21st century world with customers and suppliers who are associated in a 21st century reality. So, and you've kind of come back from highly qualified education in the US, where today we are talking of a very high sophisticated level of automation and possibilities of improving efficiencies and productivity, as you said. So what are those one or two ideas that Hoshi would like to bring into his family business, which is his contribution to the legacy?
So while we always have spoken about expansion, growing the business, we always discussed and decided that it's at the same time we will grow, but we'll grow exponentially, not widespread, uncontrollable. But at the same time, we'll stick to our core competency that we have.
Yep.
And uh, somehow, when I've seen it, Albaj for me has always been a labor of love that my grandfather has planted. And my dad has nourished it day by day and blossomed it into something. So from where I am right now, I can only hope that I continue to nourish it and, in the same way, and help it to bloom even taller. So I know on one hand that we will not be shifting from our core competencies. We will continue the same values that we have of quality, integrity, transparency. These are unshakable in the philosophy of Albaj. So none of this is ever going to go away. What I have seen, or like what I always knew once I joined, was that now that we're into a digital age, now that we're in the 21st century, as you likely said, we definitely needed to have a very, very big social media presence. Because if you see, a lot of our competitors I saw were on LinkedIn, were posting, getting a lot of traction, a lot of clientele through that platform. So the first thing I initially, when I joined, I started off with trying to grow our social media presence, trying to develop it. So with that in mind, as soon as I joined, initially it was more focused on revamping our website, trying to make it more digital, trying to make it more suitable towards the 21st century. And we started a completely new LinkedIn page, which we never had, which posts are regularly getting a lot of traction, getting a lot of comments. So hoping that, that is a platform through which we are trying to target a lot of clientele. And the good thing I can say through all this is that I've always had the support of my dad, because there's never been any restriction that's been imposed on me. I've never found any resistance through his end. Because I guess he also realized the importance of something like this. So I was never stopped that, okay, why are you doing something like this? Let's focus on something else. It was never that. It was always, okay, you think this is essential? Let's put the company first. Let's see how we can benefit the company. So in that aspect, I've never had any sort of resistance or any sort of ego clashes that we've had. I think that is something very, very good. And like I said earlier, he's more financial focused, looking after the complete finances of the company, planning for maybe 2-3 months ahead, negotiating with suppliers, negotiating with customers. And so that keeps me free to look at different ways by which we can increase our clientele, grow the business, gain a new customer base, because you can never have enough of that.
Of course.
So
of course.
Through LinkedIn, through social media, that's something I'm trying to do, trying to find out how we can market ourselves better. And at the same time, like I said, now that granddad's not there, I love to see myself out there on the shop floor. So the day-to-day operations, trying to get the work done, seeing if there's any sort of bottleneck that's happening, talking to the workers, seeing, okay, is there something issue? Can we help you get better? So operations has always been something that I liked even during the course of my studies. And I've seamlessly, I think, integrated. I'm trying to integrate operations and marketing to try to not just gain a customer base, but also try to increase our efficiency, trying to make the current customers even happier. So that basically keeps Dad free to look after the finances and the other aspects of it.
Hoshi, you seem so passionately immersed in the work that you do. I wonder, in all this, where do you find time for the other love of your life, which is the game of tennis?
Tennis has been a huge part of my life. I can barely remember a time when it wasn't actually. It's one of my biggest passions. It was a hobby and now it's become a huge passion. Been playing it for close to 20 years now. And it's one thing that I absolutely crave, and I try to make sure that I get time in my day for it. I need my game of tennis or something every day, as a stress buster, as a way of having that source of discipline in your life. It gives me a lot of discipline. It gives me a chance to express my emotions as well. A lot of pent up frustration.
Correct.
And at the same time, it gives me a good workout, helps me stay fit. And we've got a really wonderful group who play. So it's not just the game of tennis, but it's also a social interaction. We talk about issues, we discuss. It's an intellectual stimulation as well. So
Mhm.
in all of this, tennis is very, very close to my heart and something that absolutely I need to have every day. And it's just not playing the sport, but I guess it's also watching the sport.
Mhm.
So, I mean, honestly speaking, I'm a huge sports junkie. My mom is literally telling me that you literally watch any sport that comes on TV. And that's true. I like watching sports. I like to know what's happening in the sports world. But tennis appeals to me in a very different ways. Apart from the game, I guess, because I also watch it, but also it's one of those spheres from where I've got my a hero or someone to look up to. So everyone always says that you need to have some sort of hero, you need to have some sort of idol, someone to look up to.
Mhm.
And for me, honestly, that cannot be anyone else except for Roger Federer.
He is the he
He's
is
literally
the
like a god in my house.
he is the real goat, right? The
He
greatest
is
of
the
all
goat.
time.
No matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone says, he'll always be the goat. And I mean, when Federer is on TV, our house literally comes to a standstill, absolute standstill. There's screaming and yelling and cheering. It's pure passion, absolute passion. And it's not just about how he plays the game. I mean, he's like a ballerina on court. That's I don't think there's anyone going to be ever anyone like him as well. But it's not just about who he's on, but also who he's off the court that appeals to me.
Mhm.
His The way he conducts himself, his humility, how humble he is, his humanitarian spirit, the NGOs that he's catered to all around the world. And I don't think there's a single person who does not respect him. I mean, sure, you may be a Nadal fan, you may be a Djokovic fan, but I don't think anyone has a bad word to say about Federer. And I think that is a true sign of greatness, not about how much people remember you when you play, but also after you start playing, how much people remember you, how much people talk about you. And his is something like a blueprint which I try to, or which I want to emulate and follow, let me say, about how respected he is, about his legacy that he has. So, as I said, legacy is a big, big part about what I'm trying to do, both in a personal life and a professional life, about
Correct.
how you can cement your legacy, about how you can make a small impact in this world. So, tennis has been a huge, huge, huge part of my life.
You know,
It's basically life, I
you
can
know,
say.
Hoshi, you've described Roger Federer with a phrase which I have never heard before. And as I kind of quickly think about it, I think so beautifully you have articulated that RF is like a ballerina on court. What a wonderful articulation of the hero that you have in your life. And I think, on this note, all I can say is, you know, life in many ways is like a tennis court, isn't it? You have somebody serving a volley to you, and then you have to return it back. And of course, at the end of the day, you have to win. But after winning, as RF does, or as great people do, they go to the nets, they shake hand with the opponent and say, "Thank you for a good game." I guess that's what probably is a huge lesson for all of us. So I think, Hoshi, as we are kind of coming close end of this conversation, love to hear from you that at this stage, you have articulated your own mantra in life called live, love, and laugh. Why don't we kind of end our conversation on this beautiful note in trying to understand what is it that you're trying to do there?
It's basically just living life. So I believe in living life to the fullest, just being happy, having a positive attitude, and basically trying to see the best in every situation, and making people smile, making them feel good about themselves. That makes me happy. And so live, love, laugh. It's all about, just for me, life should just be simple and happy. Being happy, making others happy, and that's pretty much it. Just a very simple and happy life. Nothing complex, nothing too much, basically. No grandiose plans, nothing. It's just about being a very happy and simple person and just living life that way.
So
Uh,
beautiful.
Coming home from work, having a greatly productive day at work, having a great game of tennis, coming home, having a wholesome meal, because food is a huge part of my life as well. I mean, I love food. I'm a huge foodie. And So coming home to that, watching Netflix, relaxing with family, I think that is all that I really want from life, basically.
Wonderful.
Just trying to get better each day, become the best version of myself, and basically not having any regrets in life. Not think about the what ifs or the could be's, just living life in the present, basically. Just living it in the moment.
So beautifully said, Hoshi. I mean, honestly, even this conversation that we've just had, in many ways for me has been a very simple and a happy conversation. And
Absolutely.
I have enjoyed every moment of it. And, would love to know, how has this conversation been for you?
Like I said, it's also been eye-opening in certain ways, because as I talk about it, I realize it sort of is a matter of reflection to me as well about what life has been, and it's always good to share that with somebody, share your experiences, share who you are, what your dreams are, who you want to be, and I think that's a wonderful part about all of this.
Undoubtedly. I mean, Hoshi, as you said at the beginning of the conversation, of these three phrases, which means so much to you as a person, and which I believe your community has given a great gift. The Zoroastrian community has given this as a great gift to mankind of three simple words: humata, hukta, huvarshta. Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. All I wish and pray that you continue carrying this torch going forward. Enjoy this beautiful life that you have, keeping it simple, making it happy, and spreading this joy and happiness to everyone around you. It's been a great joy having this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having Mr. Milind. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Same.
Absolutely wonderful.
Goodbye. Take care. Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye. Take care and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75@gmail.com. Thank you.